The great station of Aureolus floated like a shining crown above a quiet world. It was not built by one species but by many, each adding its own design until the station became a living map of cultures. Its halls were wide, its markets bright, and its docks filled with ships from 100 different stars. Aureolus was a place where knowledge was shared, where peace was kept, and where every species showed what made them unique. Among the many arrivals during the season of gathering was a small human vessel. From it stepped Marcus, a man who carried no weapons, no grand machines, and no treasure. He was not tall, nor did he walk with the pride of a leader. Instead, he moved with calm steps, his face quiet, his eyes steady. He spoke little, and even when greeted by others, his replies were short and soft. To many who met him, Marcus seemed unusual. Humans were often known for their voices. Some gave speeches that filled entire halls. Some sang with power that shook hearts. Others argued and debated with fire in their words. But Marcus was different. He did not argue. He did not sing. He worked in silence, his hands busy and his voice rarely heard. He found a place in the lower levels of the station, where travelers passed each day. There, he opened a small kitchen, no bigger than a storage room. His counters were plain, his tools simple, but his food was warm. At first, few noticed. Aliens of many kinds walked by without interest. To them, food was nothing special. Most species saw meals as simple fuel, cubes or pastes made to fill the body. They did not understand why a human would spend time making food with care. Yet those who stopped were surprised. A tired worker who tasted his stew felt comfort rise in his chest. A traveler who tried his bread found herself smiling though she could not say why. Word spread slowly, not through announcements but through whispers. The human's food makes you feel something, they said. It is not only to eat, it is something more. Still, many did not believe. Some said humans were strange creatures, wasting energy on decoration and flavor. Others said the silent man was no true representative of his kind. He seemed too plain, too quiet. Even among humans, Marcus's silence caused confusion. They wondered why he did not share stories of Earth or speak proudly of his people. The season of gathering grew nearer. This was the most important time on Aureolus. Once every cycle, the council called all species to the Grand Hall. Each would present a gift, a performance, or a creation that showed the heart of their culture. It was not a contest, but pride ran deep, and no species wished to appear weak or dull before the others. When the announcement was made, every group prepared. The Zyrn polished their crystal bodies, ready to sing their stone-born harmonies. The Sarati practiced their glowing dances, weaving light into shapes that told old stories. The Veln adjusted their machines, preparing to build sculptures that moved like living art. And what of the humans? Some spoke of bringing songs. Others thought of sharing stories of Earth's long journey among the stars. Leaders debated, each wishing for the human people to shine before the council. But Marcus said nothing. He continued to work in his kitchen, chopping vegetables, baking bread, stirring pots of stew. His silence was not cold, it was steady, like a calm river that did not need to boast of its depth. Those who knew him wondered if he would join the gathering at all. When the day arrived, ships docked, and halls filled with voices. The grand chamber opened its doors, banners of many colors flying from the walls. One by one, the species prepared to show their gifts. The council took their seats, their eyes sharp with expectation. And in the corner, quietly, stood Marcus. He carried nothing but his hands and the calm that always followed him. Many did not notice him. Those who did shook their heads. "What can a silent man offer at such a time?" they asked. "What gift can come from one who does not speak?" They did not know that his answer was already prepared, not in words, but in something far more lasting. The silent cook had arrived, and soon, the galaxy would learn that silence itself could speak louder than the grandest voice. The grand hall of the space station was alive with light and sound. Banners of many colors hung from the tall walls, each one representing a different species. The Festival of Cultures was the most important event of the cycle. Every species had gathered to show something that spoke of who they were, something that could tell others about their heart and spirit. The Zyrn were the first to perform. They stood tall, their crystal-like bodies shining under the hall's lights. With careful movements, they tapped their limbs together, and a song of pure harmony filled the air. Each note was like the sound of stars ringing. The audience listened in awe, for the Zyrn were known to shape music out of living stone. When they finished, the hall echoed with respectful claps and clicks from the different species. Next came the Veln. Their mechanical frames carried strange devices built from polished metal and glowing wires. With pride, they assembled the pieces into a sculpture that twisted and shifted in constant motion. It seemed alive, changing shapes like flowing water. Every turn revealed a new pattern, and many viewers leaned forward, trying to understand how it worked. The Veln bowed, their pride clear, as the sculpture stood spinning in the center of the stage. The Sarati followed with their dance. Their long bodies glowed with shifting colors, and their limbs moved like rivers of light. They formed circles, spirals, and waves, filling the room with beauty that words could never describe. Each movement told a story of their ancestors, of journeys across the stars, of loss and hope, of unity and love. By the end, even the stern council members were silent, touched by the display. Then it was time for the humans. All eyes turned toward them. Some expected a story of battles, for humans had often shown courage in war. Others thought they might speak of science, for humans were known to build machines that worked in surprising ways. Instead, a quiet man stepped forward. He wore no armor, carried no tool, and spoke no words. His name was Marcus. Many on the station already knew him, not because of his voice but because of his silence. He was a cook who served meals to workers and travelers in a small corner of the station. Most saw him only as a background figure, a man who kept to himself. The council looked at him with raised brows. "What will you show us, human?" one of the elders asked. Marcus bowed his head politely. His lips moved only slightly as he answered, "A kitchen. That is what I need." A wave of surprise moved through the hall. Some aliens whispered among themselves. "Did he say a kitchen?" one asked. "What can that prove?" another said. To many species, food was nothing more than energy. They ate bland meals, cubes of nutrients, or liquid mixtures that kept their bodies alive. The idea of making food into art seemed strange to them. Even some of the other humans looked uncertain. They had hoped for a story that would impress the council. A speech, perhaps, or a song of earth. But Marcus remained calm. He stood with quiet strength, waiting for the council's reply. Finally, the eldest member of the council spoke. Her voice was deep and slow, carrying the weight of centuries. "If this is what you choose, human, then the stage is yours. Show us what you wish to show." Marcus bowed again. Without another word, he walked to the side of the hall where a small cooking area had been prepared for demonstrations. It was simple, a counter, some tools, and basic ingredients that had been gathered from Earth shipments. To many eyes, it seemed plain compared to glowing crystals, moving sculptures, and dances of light. But Marcus was not troubled. He rolled up his sleeves and washed his hands. The council signaled for silence, though many still whispered. Some thought it would be a waste of time. Others waited with curiosity, wondering if this quiet human had a secret. The challenge had been announced. Every species had shown their art, their pride, their legacy. Now, the stage belonged to Marcus, the silent cook. And though no one could guess it yet, the smell of his work would soon fill the hall, and the meaning of food would change forever. The grand hall was filled with quiet voices. As Marcus arranged the simple tools before him, many of the alien guests leaned close to one another. Their words were soft, yet their doubts filled the air like a hidden storm. "What is he doing?" asked a Veln with polished steel eyes. "Cooking is nothing more than heating matter for fuel. How can this be a worthy gift?" A Sarati shimmered in colors of doubt. "Perhaps it is a human trick. They often surprise, but this seems too simple." Even some humans in the crowd were restless. They shifted in their seats, wondering if Marcus had made a mistake. Humans had always been known for boldness, for speeches that shook hearts, for songs that echoed across stations. To show nothing but a kitchen seemed like an insult to such an important festival. But Marcus heard none of this, or perhaps he chose not to notice. He stood with calm hands, placing ingredients neatly before him. A loaf of dough wrapped in cloth. A bowl of spices carried from earth. Vegetables, simple yet fresh, their colors bright against the dull counter. His movements were steady, almost like a ritual. He needed no words. His silence itself became part of the performance. One young alien, a Zyrn child with crystal skin that glimmered faintly, tugged at its guardian's hand. "Why does he not speak?" it asked. The guardian bent low, replying, "Humans are loud creatures. This one must be strange." Yet as Marcus cut the vegetables with smooth, careful strokes, the child's eyes widened. There was a grace to it, as if each slice had meaning. The knife tapped the board in a rhythm that was quiet yet strong, like a hidden heartbeat. The smell of herbs began to rise. It drifted slowly through the air, soft at first, almost unnoticed. But then, little by little, heads began to turn. A Sarati's glow paused mid-dance of colors. A Veln's mechanical limbs clicked in confusion as it tilted its head. The scent was new, warm, and alive. Still, whispers continued. "It is only smell," muttered one alien. "This proves nothing." Another said, "Humans may find joy in this, but for us, food is fuel." Marcus paid no attention. His eyes were calm, his face steady. He stirred a pot with gentle movements, letting steam rise in silver threads. He added spices at the right moments, never rushing, never delaying. The hall grew quieter, not because he asked, but because curiosity began to replace doubt. One of the council members leaned toward another. "Do you feel it?" she asked. Her voice carried surprise. "It is as if the air itself has changed." Her companion frowned. "It is strange, yes. But is it enough to honor his people?" Meanwhile, Marcus continued his work. He kneaded dough with steady pressure, folding it again and again, pressing it with care. His hands spoke in silence, telling stories through motion. To him, this was not just food. It was memory. It was comfort. It was the language of earth written in flavors. The crowd shifted again. This time it was not restlessness but focus. Aliens leaned forward, drawn by something they could not name. Even those who doubted began to watch the human's every move. His silence no longer seemed weak. It felt deliberate, powerful. One Sarati elder whispered, "He is speaking, but without words." A Zyrn added, "Each cut, each stir, each touch of spice, it is a kind of music." The human delegation began to relax. They exchanged glances, hope slowly returning to their eyes. They had doubted at first, but now they saw the truth. Marcus was not trying to compete with alien wonders. He was showing something different, something deeply human. At last, Marcus set the bread to bake. A warm glow filled the small oven. Soon the hall was wrapped in a smell unlike anything most species had ever known. It was soft and inviting, rich and gentle. For the first time in the festival, silence fell without command. No one spoke. No one whispered. They simply breathed in the air, waiting. The doubts were not gone, but they had changed. Where there had been scorn, there was now curiosity. Where there had been whispers of weakness, there was now quiet wonder. Marcus, still silent, wiped his hands on a cloth. His eyes lifted, calm and steady. He had not spoken a single word, yet the hall leaned toward him, waiting for what would come next. The challenge was only beginning, but already the silent cook had captured their attention. The hall grew quiet as Marcus worked. His hands moved with steady rhythm, and every motion seemed to carry purpose. He stirred the pot slowly, letting steam rise like silver threads curling toward the ceiling. The sound of bubbling broth filled the silence, soft yet comforting, like the heartbeat of a calm evening. Aliens who had never cared for food found themselves leaning closer. The Sarati, who usually glowed with restless colors, stood still, their bodies dim with focus. A group of Veln, whose minds often sought only structure and reason, tilted their metal heads as though trying to understand a puzzle. Even the Zyrn, who prided themselves on music shaped from crystals, seemed unsettled, for the rhythm of the kitchen was forming a kind of music of its own. Marcus added spices one by one. Each pinch released a wave of scent, warm and sharp, sweet and smoky. The hall filled with layers of fragrance, rising and blending like voices in harmony. To the humans present, it was familiar memories of family dinners, holidays, and laughter around small tables. To the aliens, it was something new, something beyond their imagination. A young Zyrn child whispered, "It feels like singing, but not with sound." Its guardian frowned at first, then slowly nodded. "Yes. It does." Marcus worked without rush. He chopped herbs with even strokes, their green leaves falling into the pot like scattered notes of a melody. He stirred gently, then placed slices of fruit on a tray, glazing them with honey that caught the light like liquid gold. Every step was calm, every step measured, as if he was painting with flavors instead of colors. The bread began to bake. The smell drifted through the hall, soft yet powerful. It carried warmth, comfort, and safety. For the Sarati, who had known only nutrient blocks, the smell was unlike anything their glowing senses had ever felt. For the Veln, who thought of food only as fuel, it was confusing yet strangely beautiful. Even the council members, who had sat in stern silence, found their hands relaxing on the table before them. One elder leaned to another and whispered, "I feel something. It is strange. Is it memory? But how can I remember something I never knew?" Another answered, "Perhaps it is not memory. Perhaps it is feeling. The human makes us feel through the air itself." Marcus did not look up. His eyes remained on his work, his silence never broken. Yet his every movement seemed to speak. He was telling a story without words, a story that carried across species and across the hall. He prepared a stew with vegetables and herbs, their colors bright against the broth. He laid the glazed fruit on plates, their shine catching the glow of the festival lights. He sliced herbs finely, scattering them like green confetti that added life to each dish. Slowly, the counter became a stage, and every bowl and plate became part of a performance. The serrati began to glow faintly in soft blues and greens, colors of calm. The zyrn shifted their crystals so that they rang lightly, a sign of quiet wonder. Even the mechanical velm tilted forward, their clicking slowed, as though their minds were pausing from logic to simply feel. The humans in the audience smiled now, their earlier worry fading. They recognized this silent art. Back on Earth, food had always been more than fuel. It had been celebration, comfort, and connection. They saw Marcus carrying that truth into the stars, and they knew he was showing the heart of humanity better than any speech could. As the last dish was placed, Marcus stepped back. The table was filled, but it was more than food, it was a canvas painted with care. A stew rich with colors, bread steaming with warmth, fruit shining like jewels, and herbs scattered like brush strokes. The hall smelled alive, as though life itself had been invited to sit at the table. For a long moment, no one spoke. The audience simply stared, caught between wonder and disbelief. They had expected words, songs, or glowing machines. Instead, they were given silence, flavor, and care woven into something invisible yet deeply felt. One council member broke the silence. Her voice was soft, almost uncertain. "This is a gift." Marcus bowed his head once, his silence steady. And though he had not spoken, the message was clear. This was not just cooking. It was music without sound, painting without color, a story told through the air itself. The symphony of flavors had begun, and the hall waited, breathless, for the first taste. The hall was silent as the dishes rested on the long table. Steam rose gently from the stew, carrying with it a rich smell that wrapped around every guest like an invisible blanket. The bread sat golden and soft, its crust cracking lightly as warm air escaped. The glazed fruit sparkled under the lights, each piece shining as if it had been touched by the sun itself. The council members looked at each other. Their faces, though different in shape and color, all carried the same question: should they dare to try? For many species, food was only energy, never a matter of pleasure or art. To eat for taste alone was unknown to them. Finally, one Scifi elder floated forward. Her body glowed in a pale green shade of hesitation. She reached for a spoon, her long fingers trembling as if she was holding a fragile gem. She dipped into the stew, lifted a portion, and brought it to her lips. The hall watched in silence. The Scifi elder tasted. Her glow shifted at once, changing colors faster than the crowd had ever seen. Blue for calm, yellow for surprise, and deep violet for wonder. She gasped softly, her body pulsing with bright hues. "It is alive," she whispered. "The taste carries warmth. It carries memory. I feel as though I am sitting beside a fire, though I have never known such a thing." The audience stirred. A Velm leaned forward, clicking its mechanical limbs in interest. "Memory inside taste? Impossible. I must test this myself." With careful precision, the Velm elder lifted a slice of bread. The texture surprised him, it was soft yet strong. He bit into it, and for the first time in his long mechanical life, his sensors recorded something new. Sweetness, warmth, comfort, concepts that had no place in the mind of a Velm suddenly filled him. His metal eyes glowed faintly as he turned to the council. The bread, it feels like belonging. As if I am not alone. A murmur spread across the hall. Aliens who had doubted now leaned closer, curiosity shining brighter than their hesitation. One by one, more council members stepped forward. A ZYRN cracked a piece of bread and let it touch its crystal mouth. The sound that followed was not a word but a pure tone, a ringing note of joy that echoed across the chamber. The ZYRN's body shimmered with light. It sings inside me, it said. The Sarati elder encouraged others. Do not fear. The human gives not danger, but a gift. Taste, and you will know. Soon the table was surrounded. Plates were passed, spoons dipped, bread broken and shared. The stew disappeared in moments as aliens discovered flavors both sharp and gentle, deep and comforting. The glazed fruit melted on tongues, sending sweetness that felt like laughter itself. Some closed their eyes as though they were traveling through memories they never knew they had. Others spoke softly, their voices carrying awe. Even the youngest in the crowd could not resist. The ZYRN child from earlier tugged at its guardian's hand, and the elder allowed a small taste of fruit. The child's crystals shone in bright pink light, a color of delight. It clapped its small hands together, ringing out a cheerful sound. Laughter rippled through the hall at the sight. The humans in the audience watched with pride. Many had feared Marcus's silence, but now they saw the truth shining in every reaction. He had spoken through flavor, and every species could understand. No translation was needed, no words required. The council leader, who had doubted the most, at last reached forward. She took a spoonful of stew, tasted it, and then sat back with her eyes closed. For a long moment, she said nothing. When she opened her eyes again, they were softer than before. Human, she said quietly, you have shown us more than I expected. You have shown us that food can carry heart. The hall erupted in voices. Aliens spoke in their own tongues, some clicking, some glowing, some ringing, yet all carrying the same feeling: wonder, joy, and respect. For the first time, species who rarely agreed found themselves united in a single moment of awe. And through it all, Marcus stood quietly, his hands folded in front of him. He did not smile widely, nor did he speak. His silence remained, but now it no longer seemed empty. It was full, carrying meaning greater than any words. The first taste had changed everything. The hall no longer echoed with doubt. Instead, it rang with the soft sounds of joy and surprise. Aliens who had once whispered against Marcus now spoke with wonder, their voices carrying excitement. Plates clattered lightly as more guests reached for the human dishes. Steam still rose gently from the stew pot, while the sweet scent of baked bread lingered in the air like a song that refused to end. The council, who had gathered to judge, now sat back in silence. Each member had tasted the food, and each had felt something that could not be measured in words. The Sarati elder still glowed with shifting colors of calm. The Velm's mechanical eyes still carried a faint light of warmth. The ZYRN continued to hum faintly, their crystal bodies echoing the taste they had experienced. Marcus stood before them with quiet dignity. His hands rested at his sides, his face calm, his lips silent. He had spoken no speech, sung no song, built no machine. Yet the hall was filled with his message. One young council member rose. Her voice trembled, not from fear but from awe. This human has not spoken a word, yet I understand him more clearly than if he had given 1,000 speeches. His silence was not weakness. It was strength. He let his gift speak for him. The hall stirred at these words. Many nodded. Some spoke their agreement in clicks or hums or glowing lights. Others simply looked at Marcus with new respect. The elder of the council raised her hand for quiet. The voices faded until only the soft bubbling of the pot could be heard. She looked directly at Marcus. Human, you have done something rare. You have shown us not power of weapon, nor strength of machine, but power of care. You have reminded us that even in the endless cold of space, warmth can be shared. Marcus bowed slightly. His silence was unbroken, but his eyes carried gratitude. The council elder turned to the gathered species. We have seen great displays today. Music, dance, invention. Yet this silent act has given us something beyond measure. It has given us unity. For in this hall, we all share one truth: we all understand what it means to be comforted, to feel belonging, to be reminded of home. The words struck deeply. The Scifi, glowing in gentle blue, bowed their heads in agreement. The Velm clicked their limbs softly in respect. The Zyrn rang their crystals with tones of harmony. And the humans, who had once feared shame, now stood proudly. One alien voice called out, "The human has given us a silent speech." The phrase spread quickly. A silent speech, echoed a Scifi. A silent speech, chimed the Zyrn. A silent speech, repeated even the Velm, though their voices carried no music, only clicking rhythm. The hall filled with the chant. 100 species, different in form and sound, spoke the same phrase together. The silent man had spoken without words, and they had all heard him. Marcus stood still, but inside his heart swelled. He had never wished for praise. All he wanted was to share the art he loved, to bring warmth through food. Yet now he saw what it had done. His kitchen had become a bridge between worlds. The council leader rose once more. "Let this be remembered," she said firmly. "Humans are not only explorers, not only fighters, not only builders. They are also givers of warmth, creators of memory, and keepers of unity. This human, through silence and through food, has shown us the depth of their spirit." The hall erupted in respectful sound, not applause, for many species did not clap, but in their own ways they showed honor. The Scifi shone in gold, the Zyrn rang in chords, the Velm tapped their limbs in rhythm, and the humans clapped with their hands. Together, the hall became alive with a symphony of respect. Marcus bowed again, then stepped back from the stage. His role was done, yet his silence still echoed louder than any word. The dishes on the table were nearly empty, but the memory of their taste remained in every guest's heart. The silent speech was complete. And though Marcus never spoke, every soul in the hall understood him. Humanity had once again shown its strength not through power, but through care, through connection, through the quiet gift of a shared meal. The festival ended, but the memory of Marcus's silent gift did not fade. In the days that followed, the great hall of the station seemed different. Where once there had been suspicion and distance between species, now there was warmth. Conversations that had been cautious became open. Meetings that had once been tense began with smiles. The taste of human cooking still lingered in their minds, and with it lingered a sense of connection. Marcus returned to his small corner kitchen on the station. He worked just as quietly as before, preparing meals for travelers, workers, and guests. But something had changed. His kitchen was no longer hidden in the shadows. Now, beings of every kind came to visit. Sarati glowed with excitement as they asked for bread. Veln brought small containers to carry stew back to their workshops. Even the Zyrn, who once valued only crystal music, now hummed in soft tones as they accepted glazed fruit. At first, Marcus was surprised. He had not expected such a response. He had only wished to share what he loved. But slowly he understood. The food was not only filling stomachs, it was filling hearts. The simple act of preparing meals had become something greater, something that crossed the borders of species and culture. News of the festival spread beyond the station. Other colonies and ships began to ask for recipes. Trade routes carried spices, grains, and herbs from Earth to distant worlds. Markets that had once sold only tools and machines now displayed jars of honey, sacks of flour, and bundles of green herbs. Cooking, once dismissed as a human oddity, began to grow as a shared art. Alien chefs came to Marcus, asking to learn. A Sarati apprentice stood beside him, its glowing body shifting as it stirred pots with delicate hands. A Zyrn elder learned the careful rhythm of slicing vegetables, the sound of the knife ringing like crystal notes. Even a Veln, though clumsy with its mechanical limbs, tried to knead dough, pressing with precise force until the bread rose. Marcus never scolded. He guided them with quiet gestures, showing them how patience and care were as important as the ingredients themselves. Soon, new kitchens appeared across the station. Stalls opened in the markets, each one blending human recipes with alien traditions. One stand sold glowing fruit bread infused with Sarati spices. Another offered crystal-baked stews that sang faintly when stirred. The air of the marketplace changed. It no longer smelled only of oil and machines, it smelled of warmth, flavor, and life. The council watched these changes with wonder. They had hoped the festival would bring unity, but they had not imagined this. Instead of speeches or treaties, it was food that had created bridges. Species that once avoided each other now shared meals together. A Zyrn and a Veln could sit at the same table, breaking bread while discussing their work. A Sarati and a human could laugh as they compared tastes. Slowly, trust began to grow where before there had been distance. One day, the council elder visited Marcus in his kitchen. She sat quietly, watching him stir a pot of soup. For a long while she said nothing, simply breathing in the scent that filled the small room. At last, she spoke. "You have done something rare, human. Without a word, you have changed us. You have taught us that sharing is stronger than pride, that a table can bring peace where speeches fail." Marcus only bowed his head. His silence remained, but his eyes showed understanding. The elder smiled softly. "Perhaps silence is not emptiness. Perhaps silence is the space where meaning grows." As the years passed, Marcus's legacy deepened. Recipes spread to other stations, to colonies, to ships traveling between stars. Meals became part of diplomacy, part of gatherings, part of daily life. Humanity was no longer seen only as explorers or fighters. They were seen as bringers of warmth, of unity, of flavor that touched the spirit. And Marcus himself? He remained in his kitchen, never seeking fame. To him, the legacy was not about recognition. It was about the quiet joy of seeing strangers smile as they tasted something new, the joy of watching fear turn into friendship over a simple bowl of stew. The silent cook had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest speech needs no words at all. It only needs a table, a meal, and a little care. And so, in the far reaches of space, the kitchen became a place of peace, and humanity earned its place not by power or conquest, but by the simple truth that sharing food could change the stars.